High Bank Fury. I'm Roy J. Akers with Tyler Head, Communications Director of Echo Park Speedway down in Hampton, Georgia. I love the background. You're sitting to us in the press room that not too long ago was filled full of people like myself. And Tyler, how's your summer been so far?
Getting a lot of R&R, much needed after a pretty condensed stretch of a lot of big things happening down here in Hampton, Georgia, between our race in February to Monster Jam in the spring, a bunch of other events, rebranding to the newly named Echo Park Speedway just in time for the Quaker State 400 available at Walmart, all happening within just a few short months. So definitely been getting some R&R and getting recharged to get ready for 2026.
Yeah, that's one of the things about Echo Park, and really this is a job for another episode. But so many of the tracks I just talked to Michael I think it's Vandermark over at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and most of the tracks, big, small, anywhere in between, are basically have multi events going on during the year. You can't rely on just IndyCar, NASCAR. You got to have several things. I know you guys have done the circus over the years, I think, haven't you? You've done all kinds of things there. You try to fill it up all year long. Anyway, with that, a couple of things. What we're going to talk about, we're going to quickly go to a break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about Watkins Glen, a track that you're very familiar with. I want to also ask you kind of a schedule and a points question as well, so we're going to do that on the flip side.
This August, a full-throttle festival comes to upstate New York. Camp under the stars, then witness the brightest stars of NASCAR battle for a crucial playoff spot. NASCAR weekend at Watkins Glen. Get your tickets now at theglen.com.
Tyler, a quote came out before we get into Watkins Glen specific. Ford Performance had Ryan Preece on yesterday, and to me, it doesn't really matter what I think about the points situation and the playoffs and all that kind of thing. But a question came up and to Ryan Preece, and Ryan said that he really didn't like the playoff system the way it was, that he liked the ability to reward everybody throughout the course of the season. And here's Ryan Preece. Here's what he said on that, and then we're going to go ahead and riff off that on the other side.
Um, well, I think for me, growing up racing everything you always race, it was a season long endeavor. So I am a fan of not taking an entire season and throwing it away based off one race, or vice versa. It can potentially change your entire season. I think there's a lot of merit to having to put together, 10 months or 8, 9 months of whatever it is of going and succeeding. I think I don't know. But at the same time, this is the world we live in. This is the season we're racing. And, you could choose to focus on certain racetracks in the expectations or hopes of executing and winning, and that change your entire season. But, that's the world we live in right now. But whatever the format ends up being is what it's going to be, and what I'm going to try to maximize.
Well, you heard Tyler, what Ryan Preece said, and he likes to see drivers be rewarded for their entire season. And there's as many takes as there are people that follow the sport. What says you?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started recording. Nobody's asking Tyler Head what to do as
Yeah.
far as how you crown a champion in NASCAR. But I've been around long enough to have seen the full season points, to have seen the chase, the couple iterations of the chase, and now this playoff format that has itself been tweaked a couple times over the course of the years. I think there's definitely a balance between, having that late season intrigue, especially when you're going up against football in the fall, and there's a lot of different things for people to give their attention to at that time of year. So having a little bit more stakes on that part of the season, so that people are a little bit maybe drawn to pay attention to what you've got going on as a sport. If you're NASCAR, definitely sympathetic to that, but also definitely want to see each of the races throughout the course of a year have a lot of weight behind them, because I think that's really the star of the show is the racing that you see across a NASCAR season, from, you know, big high banked super speedways like Daytona and Talladega, short tracks like Martinsville and Bristol, you know, that are flat and high banked, and, you know, all things in between Richmond and Iowa. These oddball, you know, don't really fit into a category tracks like Gateway and Nashville Super Speedway and Darlington Raceway to some extent. Certainly our track here at Echo Park Speedway is a blend of a couple different ideas. That's one of the strengths of NASCAR, is the variety of tracks, and definitely would like to see whatever the format is. Each year we walk away going, okay, the champion was the guy who was able to, through the course of the year, really conquer all of those different challenges that the NASCAR schedule threw at them.
Yeah, for me, what I like about the current format, I'm probably one of the few people that don't really want to see a huge significant change. A couple things that have to be considered is, if they, let's say they go back to the old system before any chase, playoffs, any of those kinds of things, what are they going to do about the bottom 20 drivers that basically are out of it pretty quick? I mean, what's going to happen? Because I went to the Detroit Grand Prix a couple of months ago, and I asked, I think it was Colton Herta, or was it? No, yeah, it was Colton Herta. I says, "What did you think about that?" Oh, I mean, you would have thought I had garlic and a steak out. He was like, "Oh, absolutely not. We don't want that." But IndyCar, it's been a formality for 3 months who's going to win the championship this year. So that's something to consider. I do like that NASCAR considers having winners in there. There is a blend of winners. They do have points for the stage racing as well. So it seems like NASCAR has taken consideration to all these. Saying that, like, nobody's asking you, Tyler, no one's asking me, no one will ask me, and if they do, they probably shouldn't. But although I think I have a good head on my shoulders for these kinds of things, we all do, right? We all got that opinion. So whatever they do is going to be fine, and I do hope that they keep it in a system where everybody's on their toes. You get Austin Dillon, he won Richmond last year. Of course, he had the penalty and had it taken away, but you get a guy like him who thinks he can maybe go ahead and race their way in. You've got somebody like a Carson Hocevar that could possibly be out there, who's had stretches of the season and multiple times where he looked good. So that's just my take on it. I hope that whatever they come up with, if they come up with anything, everybody is considered. Fair enough?
Fair enough. I just know that each week, you know, as long as there's cars on the track, I'm going to be watching, because that's the attraction for me at the end of the day, is seeing these guys compete.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. One thing, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, because this is an Echo Park specific question, and we'll probably revisit it this fall, is, do you happen to know if you're going to have one date or two dates on the schedule, or is that something you can't really reveal right now?
You know, nothing's official until it's official, right? But we're definitely expecting to have 2 dates next year.
Yeah, I surely hope so. And you already know how I feel about Echo Park, no doubt about that. What we're going to do is we're going to go to a real quick 30-second break. We have a promo for Watkins Glen. It's been playing for the last month to get people to the Speedway. We're going to play that, and when we come back, we are going to be talking about Watkins Glen and also a little ditty that you did with Ross Chastain back, several weeks ago, but we didn't get a chance to ask you about it, and we always like to see what the drivers are doing. We'll be back in 30.
This August, a full-throttle festival comes to upstate New York. Camp under the stars, then witness the brightest stars of NASCAR battle for a crucial playoff spot. NASCAR weekend at Watkins Glen. Get your tickets now at theglen.com.
We're back, Tyler, and you had Ross Chastain you had him out at it wasn't a vineyard because you're talking Georgia, but you had him come out and he did a little appearance. Take us through that, because it was actually pretty cool, because the Watermelon Man got his hands dirty that day.
Yeah, I mean, he was right in his element. So we have a tradition that we've been doing since we got the summer race back. You think Georgia, you think peaches, and peach season happens to fall right where we've had that race since we got it back in 2021. So it's a tradition that carried over into the spring. So each time somebody wins a race here at Echo Park Speedway, along with the trophy, along with the glory, along with everything else that comes with a win, they get a crate of Georgia peaches. And so when we were coming up on the race in June, Ross Chastain said, "Hey, I'm around if there's anything that you'd like me to do." And we said, "Well, it'd be really cool if we could take you out to the farm that's right here in Henry County, the same county that the track sits in here in Georgia." They're the folks over at Southern Bell Farms that provide the peaches, among other things, over race weekend, but the peaches that we give away in Victory Lane. So he came over with us. We had a couple media folks follow along and learn a thing or two about what we were doing and give people a look behind the scenes at where that all comes from. And, hopped out on some Kubota tractors or side by sides for them and ran out there and checked out where these peaches come from. And, they talked a lot of shop between him and the folks there at the farm. Might as well have been French for somebody like me who's not used to
Yeah.
getting their hands dirty, like you said. But, really got into the nitty gritty of, what the optimal growing conditions are and what they're looking for before they pluck them off the tree and bring them over here. Or if anybody goes out there and self picks like they have available over at Southern Bell Farms throughout the summer. So it was a really cool experience and just a change of pace from what you usually have a race car driver doing. And couldn't think of a better guy than the Watermelon Man to go engage with something like that.
I like that, and thank you for clarifying. And it's always nice to see the drivers away from the track a little bit in their element. Now, the real reason, I don't want to say the real reason, but the primary reason we came out was to talk about Watkins Glen. And even though you have Echo Park Speedway behind you in the banner, and you're the communications director, you are from that area in New York, and you are kind of like the expert on our show and about Watkins Glen. Take her away.
Well, so I'm the communications manager for Echo Park Speedway, but the first thing I am is a race fan. And Watkins Glen is the first place that I ever went to go see a race and used to go there every year back when I lived in upstate New York. Still managed to find my way back there just about every other year since I moved down to Georgia. But it's an awesome racetrack. Have you been?
I have not been there. It's just enough of a haul. I don't know. Where would you fly to from Detroit? Where would you fly? What's the closest airport? And then
You
how
could
far do you
fly
commute?
into Syracuse or Rochester
Mhm,
probably, and then but either way you got a little bit of a drive, but it's worth it because you're going through the Finger Lakes region of New York,
mhm.
going along Seneca Lake on your way down to the village there, and it's a really great place to be, especially this time of year. Then you go up the hill up to the racetrack, and the place is just packed with people who have been camping all week,
Mhm.
waiting for the cars to hit the track, and plenty more people come in to just be in the reserved seating in the grandstands. Turn one's my spot. Like to see them come down the hill,
Yeah.
make a little bit of a mess in front of me, and then continue up the hill through the S's. That's a great vantage point in my favorite. But so many great places to sit up there, and a great way to a great place to be racing in the summer in particular too. So many places that kind of get climated out of the month of August, but Watkins Glen is certainly well at home there in August.
And so with that, hopefully next year, if you're going to go back, maybe I'll make it a point to actually make that one of the races that I attend. Okay, and then you can kind of be my host and make sure I don't step on a banana peel out there somewhere on the campus. Uh, the racing itself last year was an outstanding race. SVG, Chris Buescher, they dueled for the win, and I tell you what, it was fantastic to watch the number 17 edge out. Well, SVG was not 88 last year. He was a whole different number, but he edged him out and got the victory. And that's what Boucher's hoping for this year because he's solid in the points, but a win would just go ahead and clinch it for him.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's kind of working against him is that he's on that playoff bubble, and so there's going to be the temptation within that camp to chase some of those stage points throughout the race, which can put you on the wrong side of the strategy for winning the race at the end of the 90 laps that they're going to run this weekend. So the other thing that's working against him is Shane Van Gisbergen obviously came on the scene, won the Chicago Street Course race in his first go in one of these cars, but kind of came down to earth a little bit more when he went to the Indianapolis road course where everybody else had been. And last year at Watkins Glen really surged late in the race, but it was Buescher's race to win before an overtime restart that SVG was able to take the lead from him, and then ultimately Buescher was able to take it back. But SVG has obviously really asserted himself on the road courses this year, whether it's a new one like Mexico City or a longtime staple like Sonoma. he's been kicking their rear ends just about everywhere that they've been going with a left and right turn. So it'll be interesting to see if that holds true at Watkins Glen, one of those road courses that, has kind of narrowed the gap between the best of the best and, those that are trying to kind of looking for their speed on road courses. Been a little bit more of a open season there, especially in the next gen car. We'll see if SVG has as much of an advantage as he's had the rest of the year on the road courses. But Buescher, a guy that's, averaging close to a top 5 finish there in this car, definitely going to be one of the guys to watch and see if they can take it to SVG.
Besides those two, is it the usual suspects at the road courses? Let's bring their names up very quickly, and any surprises out there.
Well, usual suspects. I mean, I'd keep an eye on a Tyler Reddick or a Christopher Bell, who have had some success at road courses, although I haven't really seen them be spectacular at Watkins Glen up to this point. That could change at any point, though, with the strength of their organizations. Also, the Hendrick camp, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron. They're all drivers that have won at Watkins Glen before and tend to show up with competitive speed. At least one of them is going to show up with competitive speed, most likely. So they're obviously well capable of doing it. A little bit of a dark horse and somebody that, talking about punching your way into the playoffs and, having added stakes for winning a race. Michael McDowell, certainly somebody who's got to have this circled. Along with, say, an AJ Allmendinger. But Michael McDowell is one that's shown a little bit more speed throughout the year, and I'd keep an eye on him.
Yeah, I think that you've got also where Carson Holsevar, he had another top 10 finish. I know he's kind of circled in. He's trying to gun for this one as well. But we'll see. In this close quarters of the race, he's got to not be Wreck-It Ralph this week. That's for sure. Another one, we're going to go back. We have Ryan Preece again, Tyler. He's sitting in the green room ready to answer this question. First off, now, Ryan, what do you think your chances are going into the last 3 races of the season? I know you're going to bring up Chris as well since he won this race last year. What says you?
Well, I think, road courses have been pretty good to us. You never know. There's a lot of chaos at the end of them. So, at the end of the day, I think we just need to put ourselves in position to execute if, SVG were to have something go wrong or whatnot. But, I feel like, Chris is going to be really tough to beat at the road course. So, I feel good there. I feel good at Richmond. And, as you guys saw at Talladega, we were really, really fast. And I felt like we were going to have an opportunity to win there. So, I'm sure I'm not on everybody's bingo card to win, but I'd love to be the guy that upsets everybody.
Tyler, you heard Ryan Preece. Ryan believes he's got a chance in all 3 races. What racer doesn't believe they have a chance in anything, right? And Ryan Preece is very close, and he cut his deficit from 42 to 23 points with his 5th place finish last week at Iowa. So you heard what he said. Do you have any comments on Preece's chances?
Well, I'll just say, looking at the stats, he's got surprising, he talked about the road courses being pretty good for him this year, and that is true. But, even before he got into this 60 car, he's gotten some decent results at Watkins Glen in the last couple of years. And, looking at RFK racing, obviously Chris Buescher won this race last year. He's been consistent at the road courses throughout the duration of the next gen car being rolled out. So very good chance of them having speed. The question is going to be which of those RFK guys make their way into the playoffs, or how many of them make their way into the playoffs. Because if Ryan Preece is able to put together a day and Chris Buescher, loses a step and they flip-flop positions, well, that's good for one side of the shop and not great for another side of the shop unless they start stacking some wins together here. But Watkins Glen, Richmond, Daytona, those are all tracks that they've won at in the last few years as an organization. So whether you're Ryan Preece or any of his teammates, you got to be feeling good about what's in front of you and the opportunities, especially coming off a couple top 5 runs at Indy and Iowa.
If there's going to be wins for RFK, I think the best chance is for Chris Buescher this week. I think Ryan Preece next week. Steven Toronto from CBS Sports, he's convinced that Preece is going to win next week. He had that in their last episode that we had in High Bank Fury. And so, hey, we'll find out. And I think any one of them could win down in Daytona. But I think Keselowski, with this performances he's had recently, I think he's someone to keep an eye on. And I'm so happy for Keselowski. Not that I'm rooting or not rooting for any of the drivers in NASCAR, but I like to see some. You got to see Kyle Busch get back in the winner's circle. You got to see Keselowski, guys that are probably on the other side of the hill, but at the same token, they can still pull out some victories. Any final words on this or anything else?
No, I'll just, piggyback off of what you just said, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in these next few weeks leading up to the playoffs, and then, who can play spoiler within the playoffs, because, we've got an abundance of guys that are knocking on the door of victory lane and only a finite number of races for them to do it. So the intensity is going to ratchet up for sure.
Yeah, and I want to take one thing back about the points. I'm just going to make a one last little rim shot on the drum. If we had a solid point system and it doesn't take any accountability into wins beyond what they used to do, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. We'd already basically know who would make the playoffs, because NASCAR is not getting rid of the playoffs itself. It's just a matter how they calculate who gets in. That would already be over. We wouldn't have had any of this. We wouldn't have talked about Preece or RFK or some of these other guys, but we are right now because there is a playoff thing. But I totally respect how guys won in points in the past with Richard Petty and Earnhardt and Allison and well, heck, we can go on all day. The Elliots and so on and so forth. I want to thank you very much for coming on. Are you planning on going to Talladega in about a month?
I do not think I'm going to be able to go to Talladega because I'm going to be in North Wilkesboro that weekend for the Cars Tour finale.
Well then, yeah, let's forget that. I plan on being there. All right, for Tyler Head, Communications Director of Echo Park Speedway and lover of NASCAR, just like you're talking to another guy that loves it. We all love it. That's why we have him on. Everybody, please stay tuned to High Bank Fury for our Zoomcast that we have coming out. Also to www.skyviewsports.net. Tyler, one last thing. To buy tickets, to find out what's going on, it's pretty early for 2026, but where can we find you?
EchoParkSpeedway.com. That's where you can see the latest information about our 2026 dates. If you were a ticket holder in 2025, go manage your account, renew your seats, make sure you have the same great view that you had this year. Or if you're somebody who's looking to check us off your bucket list, get in early and get yourself a great vantage point for some awesome racing.
And one thing I can tell every fan that buys a ticket to Echo Park, you can see everything. You can see all the way around the track. You can see as the runs develop, the crashes happen, and the competitive dueling, the side drafting that happens at the track. And it is just an incredible vantage point. And it just seems like the machines and the drivers and that, it almost is, you can almost just feel the horsepower coming from under the hoods of the cars. That's the way I look at it.
I couldn't say it better myself.
All right. Well, hey, once in a while I get one in there. Thanks a lot, Tyler. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
White still, so you want to leave the ones that got the yellow, but got that red blush on them.
We're getting them out as fast as we can, but
Yeah. How's the rain? But these are a freestone, so you got that deep red, and even that one's a little yellow, but it's already softened up. Yeah.
like you said, if you were commercially, so as racing is taking off, I just go by that same mentality. I just want to get up and try to make my race car faster, try